ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंश कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती राधानाथ स्वामी नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादे पाश्चात्य मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्री गुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवम श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम। हरि ओम तत्सत। हरे कृष्ण। So we are discussing the 20th chapter of the fourth canto today. During the last session we discussed the very beautiful pastime of the very interesting tussle between King Indra and Maharaj Prithu over the performance of the 100th Ashwamedha Yajna. We discussed how Prithu Maharaj was performing the 100 yajnas as a service to the Lord to set the right example of being a king. But Indra, who had occupied the position of Indra by being Shatakratu, the one who performed 100 Ashwamedha sacrifices, became concerned that his feat, his record, would be equaled and broken by Maharaj Prithu. So out of material considerations, Indra became very concerned to the point that he felt that perhaps he may even lose his position as Indra. Because as soon as Maharaj Prithu performs 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, Prithu Maharaj also becomes qualified to become Indra. Actually, of course, it is not that as soon as another person becomes qualified to become Indra, the existing Indra is just removed and that person takes over. It doesn't work like that. They have to still wait in line. But apart from that, he did not want that the name Shatakratu be shared with somebody else. So we discussed the story of how King Indra, he stole the sacrificial horse from the sacrificial arena. Not just once, but multiple times, because if the horse is stolen, the yajna cannot be completed. And how every time Maharaj Prithu's son Vijitashva chased Indra and tried to recover the horse, and whenever he was about to punish Indra, how Indra would transform his form into a particular kind of sannyasi, and he took the form of different sannyasis. And because the various forms that he took were not motivated by genuine religious sentiments, but rather by sentiments of feigning religion and actually performing irreligious activities, Indra ended up creating apasampradayas by that particular. Apasampradaya means that they seem to be like genuine sadhu, but they're not actually genuine sadhus, which means that they're not actually focused on genuine spiritual life. So many such apasampradayas came out from this behavior of Indra. And such apasampradayas continue even today into Kali Yuga. These apasampradayas use the garb of a sannyasi, of a sadhu, to cover up their immoral activities. And in the garb of a sannyasi, they actually live life for their material enjoyment, but try to cover it up as if they are dedicated to a higher spiritual cause. So, of course, Brahmaji and others were not very happy that this was happening. And then as we discussed, to resolve the whole situation, when Prithu Maharaj finally took up the bow and he was about to punish Indra, Lord Brahma forbade him, saying that it is not appropriate for you. Actually, even before Brahma forbade him, actually, Prithu Maharaj was going to kill Indra. The sages forbade him first and said, no, you don't. You are the Yajman, you don't soil your hands with the blood of Indra. We will take care of him. We will recite the necessary mantras and invite him and make him as one of the offerings, Swaha, of Indra only. Instead of grains and ghee, Indra will be done Swaha. So they were about to do that, and Brahmaji, who was already present in the assembly, forbade, and he said, no, no, no. This yajna is for offering the horse, not for Indra's yajna. That is not the objective. Lord Vishnu will not be pleased by this kind of offering. Because at the end of the day, even Indra, even though he's mischievous in this particular scenario, still he's a part of the universal form of the Lord. He's performing an important role. He's performing an important seva. Yes, he's making some mistake. But this kind of a competition between Prithu and Indra will only lead to irreligion. The solution is not to kill Indra. Prithu, you are the more advanced soul. So I request you to compromise in this situation, even though you are right. Net. This is what Brahmaji proposed, and Prithu understood the situation. And he realized that if he just persisted in the competition trying to match Indra, Indra would persist in his efforts to create mischief, and adharma would spread more and more and more. Because when a great personality like Indra performs these kind of activities, they become the standard for ordinary people to follow, and that was what was happening. Irreligion was spreading. So we discussed how finally Prithu Maharaj relented by accepting to take a humble position. He thought, okay, fine, for the higher cause of world peace and for the higher cause of dharma, I will not perform the 100th yajna. So he stopped midway the 100th yajna. He had performed 99. He could have achieved that record. But he subdued that drive to achieve that magical number. So this was a very extraordinary behavior by Prithu Maharaj. It was extraordinary because in this conflict, actually Prithu was the right person. And Indra was the one who was causing the mischief. But nonetheless, because Brahmaji knew that Indra is unable to take any good advice and we cannot fix the problem by educating Indra, they came to the more advanced personality, Prithu Maharaj, who understood the gravity of the situation and understood that for a higher cause, I have to take a step back. Even though my step is a step of dharma, looks like my performance of yajna will create more adharma than creating dharma. Not just for myself, but actually for the whole universal situation. So he understood that ultimately all services for pleasing the Lord and all services ultimately for serving the Lord's ultimate plan. So sometimes, even to serve the Lord's ultimate plan, the devotee may, in certain situations, may have to do a compromise for the sake of larger peace. So this is a very, very beautiful example of that wonderful mood taken by Prithu Maharaj. So that is what we have discussed in the previous chapter. Just a quick refresh. So in this chapter, which is chapter 20, this chapter is entitled Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prithu. So it is said after this, when all this had happened, Lord Vishnu became so satisfied with this very extraordinary, exemplary behavior by Maharaj Prithu that the Lord personally appeared on the scene. And something very interesting, the Lord appeared on the scene not just alone, but he appeared on the scene along with Indra. This was quite interesting. The main criminal, who was Indra, Lord Vishnu brought him with him. And then Lord Vishnu started to address Prithu Maharaj and started speaking to him. He said, "My dear Prithu Maharaj, I know this Indra, whom I have brought with me. He has created so much disturbance in the performance of your yajna, especially the 100 sacrifice. But he is repenting now. He has come with me because he wants you to forgive him. So I am suggesting to you that please forgive him." So Lord Vishnu is asking Prithu Maharaj to forgive Indra. And after that, Lord Vishnu actually gives very wonderful philosophical instructions to Prithu, explaining to Prithu in a nutshell. I'm not going to go into all the details, but net the Lord is telling Prithu Maharaj that those are advanced in spiritual advancement are never malicious. They are free from envy. You are very spiritually advanced. In bracket, Indra is not. He has malice, he has envy, but you do not have to counter his malice with malice on your side. You show the higher example. And this kind of a malice, this kind of an envy, O Prithu Maharaj, is actually the result of bodily identification, because those who think themselves as the body, they get trapped by this kind of a materialistic mentality of benefit for the body, benefit to this materialistic ego. They get deluded by all this, but those who are advanced in knowledge, they understand that they are the spirit soul. They are not bewildered by all this. So you are so advanced in spiritual pursuits. So you should not be affected by my Maya energy like Indra is affected. But if you behave like Indra also, then all this performance of spiritual activities, I consider it a waste. There's something very interesting Krishna is speaking. So if after all our spiritual activity, we may do so much service, but at the end of the day, if we are not able to focus on the higher principle of pleasing the Lord, because ultimately, what is the purpose of all seva? The purpose of all seva is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not just to show oneself as a person who has made a great seva. Sometimes we get into such an egoistic mode. We want to show to Guru, to devotees, I am so great, I did this. And sometimes to attain that and show off, we do all kinds of things. Sometimes politics, sometimes lying, cheating. But this kind of a attainment, even if achieved at an external level, is not actually pleasing to Krishna. It is not going to lead to spiritual advancement, because wherever there is malice, there is envy, there is this kind of bodily identification, it doesn't please Krishna, because Krishna is not pleased by the external service. Krishna is pleased based on the mood of sincere, humble service of the devotee. So Krishna is, Lord Vishnu is telling Prithu Maharaj, yes, you are advanced. This kind of activities are for those who are bodily conscious. If you also behave like this, all your spiritual activities are considered waste. So I expect from you a higher behavior. Actually, by this time, Prithu Maharaj has already decided what he wants to do. But nonetheless, Lord Vishnu is instructing him. And Prithu Maharaj is humbly listening to all this advice. He's not telling Vishnu, see, I had already compromised. Why you are on top of that again coming and telling me this? See, sometimes when we have already accepted and taken a compromise position, again somebody comes superior and again starts instructing us. If we are egoistic, we will get offended. But just imagine in this situation, the adversary who is the criminal has come with the police officer. Police officer meaning the supreme law representative, the Lord himself. And he is the police officer, rather than chastising the criminal, is advising the good citizen. So the Lord also through this action is showing to all of us what is the character of Prithu Maharaj, how great souls think, how they are not driven and influenced by ego, but how they are always cooperating with the Lord's desire and the higher plan. This is very amazing. And perhaps, even though it is not mentioned directly in the verse or the purport, definitely Indra, who's listening to all this, is perhaps also an indirect instruction to Indra. See, sometimes it so happens that when a devotee is not very advanced and he's making mistake, if we directly tell them you are doing this wrong, you're doing, they become, sometimes their ego is so strongly affected that it may actually produce a counterproductive result if we try to advise them, even where advice is due. That's very interesting. So in such situations, the guru and the spiritual teachers will give instructions to that person. Sometimes we're not directly telling him, but by giving the same instruction either in a class or to another devotee in front of him. Prabhupada gives this example often. He says, when a girl gets married and comes to the in-laws house as a new bride, and she's still not comfortable, she's still not settled in the home. At that time, if the mother-in-law wants to advise the new daughter-in-law, wants to correct her, advise her, or even chastise her, she doesn't feel that she should directly tell the daughter-in-law, because if she tells her daughter-in-law, the daughter-in-law is already very new. She may feel that I'm being rejected or not accepted into the family. So to avoid this kind of an uncomfortable situation, if the mother-in-law wants to advise, Prabhupada says, oftentimes the mother-in-law, rather than telling the daughter-in-law, will tell those instructing words to her daughter. But she'll make sure that when she's telling to the daughter-in-law is overhearing the conversation. So she may ask her daughter, hey, why this vegetable is cut like this? Don't you know that it should be cut like that? Next time you don't do like that. And the daughter also, she plays along. Oh yes, sorry mother, I will cut it properly the next time, even though she is not the one who has done it. So both are acting so that the lesson goes to the daughter-in-law without offending her. So even the Lord and the great devotees are so careful and gentle of how to pass the instructions and correction. That's also a big art, because not everybody is ready for correction. And that is why even spiritual authorities, spiritual teachers, Diksha Gurus, Shiksha Gurus, sometimes we think, why is somebody not chastising or correcting somebody directly on the face? Sometimes we wonder, oh, he's doing this, he's doing this. But just because somebody is not getting corrected or chastised directly on the face doesn't mean they are right. In fact, it may very well mean that they are not even advanced enough to be directly corrected. So some of these things are very difficult to understand. It's not so easy to understand. And this is such a wonderful example here where how Lord Vishnu is also dealing with these two devotees, one who is advanced and one who is not so advanced. And Lord Vishnu goes on to say that this kind of a transcendental vision where there is no malice, this is possible for those who have a proper understanding of the position of the soul and the super soul with respect to this body. And when a person has the proper understanding of Atma, Paramatma, and this particular body, and performs one's prescribed duties with detachment for the pleasure of the Lord, then one can actually make advancement towards bhakti. So you should show that kind of an example. You do not be affected by Maya. Because those who are actually advanced are actually detached. They are not concerned about home, wife, money, so on, so forth, and number of yajnas in bracket. Because they know all these things, including material fame, is passing. All material attainments are finished at the time of death, right? We actually work so hard with material consciousness all our life to make big attainments, but we forget that as soon as death comes, the reset button is going to be pressed and all our scores are going to go back to zero. In terms of the attainment in this life, of course, our karma will continue with us. Our spiritual merits will continue with us. But the external attainments which are related to the body will all perish with the body. So Lord Vishnu is reminding Prithu Maharaj that when a living entity actually becomes pure, becomes purified from all material contamination through the cultivation of bhakti, then the mind becomes so broad and transparent that they can see things very clearly and very equally. Then at that point, a person can become actually transcendentally situated and actually attain liberation. So like this, many instructions Lord Vishnu gives to Prithu Maharaj. Indra is listening, and perhaps Indra, even though it's not mentioned here, he must be feeling more and more embarrassed and uncomfortable as this is happening, because in his heart he knows that the mischief is done by him, because he's also a devotee. So the Lord tells Prithu Maharaj, you be equipoised. You do not be disturbed by this kind of temporary reversals. Do not be disturbed by all these situations, and treat all people equally, whether they are more advanced than you, whether they are equal to you, or they are lower than you. This is very important. And this principle is also mentioned repeatedly across the Bhagavatam also. Those who are more advanced than us, we should be happy to see them. We should not become envious. We should serve them. Those who are equal, we should make friendship with them. And those who are lower than us, we should not deride them, but we should show compassion and help them. And a person who has this kind of relationship with all living entities will always be happy and blissful. And then Lord Vishnu starts instructing Prithu Maharaj with respect to the ideal behavior of a king. And he starts telling him that an ideal king is one who gives proper protection to his subjects. What kind of a protection? He gives protection in such a way that all the inhabitants of the state can properly perform their prescribed duties. So it is the prescribed duty of the king to ensure that everybody can follow their own prescribed duties properly. That is his prescribed duty. And if a king does like this, then it is said, only then, when he gives this kind of a protection to his citizens, only then he is entitled to take tax from the citizens. So tax is taken in return for proper protection. If one simply collects tax and doesn't give proper protection or doesn't execute his own duties, then such a king is liable for punishment. But a king who properly executes his duties, he gets a share of 1/6 of the good karma, the pious credits performed by all the residents of the kingdom. This is amazing. So net, what that means, a king is responsible for what the subjects do. If he performs, in the kingdom, whoever performs pious activities, the king gets 1/6 of the share. If they perform impious activities, also he gets 1/6 of the share. So king cannot say, I'll just enjoy my position. Who cares? Let the praja do whatever they want. I just want votes. I just want them to support me at all costs. No. 1/6 of the karma. Can you imagine? People nowadays in Kali Yuga are so excited to become a head of state. If they understand what it means to be the head of the state, this is not Satya Yuga, this is not Treta Yuga, this is not Dwapar Yuga, this is Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, barely anybody performs pious activities. Most people perform sinful activities. So imagine what will be 1/6 of the share of all sinful activities of all the citizens. So Lord Vishnu is warning Prithu Maharaj that you should perform your prescribed duties properly, and prescribed duties is about, for you, is about protecting the performance of prescribed duties of the citizens. Of course, this comment is also linked to Maharaj Prithu taking a compromise situation, because the argument that was given is, if Maharaj Prithu does not take a compromise position and continues in competition with Indra, then sinful adharma will be propagated everywhere because of Indra's improper behavior. And then Prithu Maharaj will also have to suffer the consequences. So again, the Lord is also advising him that even if you look at it from that perspective, this is the right thing for you to do. So if you do like this, you keep away all your own concocted ideas from your mind and follow the instructions that I am giving you, then you will be happy, your citizens will happy, everybody will love you. And very soon you will attain the supreme destination, the same destination which is attained by the 4 Kumaras. So my dear king, I am seeing that you are actually of excellent behavior and excellent qualities. So actually I am very favorably inclined towards you. So being pleased with you, I am requesting you to accept any benediction you may want from me. So it's amazing. So Prithu Maharaj, even though he's given an instruction, the Lord knows that he has actually in his heart accepted the advice, and that Prithu Maharaj has already accepted to compromise. And Lord Vishnu, understanding this situation, offers a benediction to Prithu Maharaj by saying that I would like to bless you with whatever benediction you want. Now, this was a very amazing blessing. Imagine the Lord coming personally in front of someone and asking them that please accept whatever benediction you may want. So after Lord Vishnu spoke like this, Maharaj Prithu, actually he was feeling so much affection. He was seeing the Lord. He had such pure devotion for the Lord. Maharaj Prithu was feeling very overwhelmed with devotion for the Lord. Maharaj Prithu and Lord Vishnu also noticed that as all this was happening, Indra, who was standing besides, was feeling very ashamed, because he could see that Prithu Maharaj accepted that very, very difficult instruction without protest. And he knew that he was the cause of all this ruckus. So Indra actually at that point in time became so ashamed that he immediately ran and fell down at the feet of Prithu Maharaj in front of Lord Vishnu to touch his lotus feet and beg for forgiveness. Prithu Maharaj, showing great magnanimity to Indra, rather than accepting his obeisances, he immediately picked him up and he actually embraced him with great affection and ecstasy. And whatever feelings of animosity was there between both of them, it was extinguished by that loving embrace. All envy, all competition, all enmity was given up. So again, this is also an example of wonderful Vaishnava behavior. When we realize we have made a mistake, we beg forgiveness from the one from whom we have offended. And those whom we have offended, it is their duty that when somebody is sincerely repenting, to graciously forgive and give up all forms of negative feelings. After having done that, of course, Lord Vishnu was very pleased to see this as well. After that, Prithu Maharaj, with great love and devotion, worshipped the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had actually been so kind to him by giving him darshan and by speaking to him such beautiful words. And as he was worshipping the Supreme Lord, Maharaj Prithu was feeling great and greater and greater and greater ecstasy. So after Maharaj Prithu had completed worshipping Lord Vishnu was about to leave because the conversation was kind of over and the matter was settled. But nonetheless, the Bhagavatam says that Lord Vishnu felt so reciprocally attracted by the devotion of Prithu Maharaj. Just as Prithu Maharaj was feeling so much attraction for the Lord, who is Bhakta Vatsal, was feeling so much attraction for Prithu Maharaj that he did not leave. He continued to stay on. It is said as if that the Lord was detained by Prithu Maharaj. And why it was possible for Prithu Maharaj to detain the Lord, so to say? Because the Lord is extremely affectionate to his devotees and he is the well-wisher of his devotees. So when Prithu Maharaj noticed this, he became even more overwhelmed. See, this is a beautiful reciprocation between the Lord and the devotee. There is Prabhupada often says that there is a transcendental competition between the Lord and the devotee. Prithu Maharaj became even more overwhelmed when he saw this disposition of the Lord, and that the Lord is feeling so affectionate that even though the Lord at that point would have normally left, he still continued to stay on. It is said his eyes of Prithu Maharaj became full of tears. He was crying profusely, tears of ecstasy. His voice became choked up. So much so that Prithu Maharaj could not even speak and could not even see the Lord clearly. So much tears in his eyes that he could not even see the Lord properly. But within his heart, the Bhagavatam says, Prithu Maharaj was embracing the Lord in the core of his heart. If you remember, we discussed this, that even when we are taking darshan of the Lord, and this is how we should embrace the Lord, especially the lotus feet of the Lord, in the innermost core of our heart. That is the ideal way to take darshan, not just see. We should feel devotion and we should want to take the Lord's lotus feet in the innermost core of our heart. And as this was happening, the Lord was also feeling so overwhelmed. So the Lord not only not left, it is said the Lord, who was, even though he was standing in front of Prithu Maharaj at that point in time, up until that point in time, the Lord was floating in the air. He was a little bit above the ground. Just like the Devatas come, they don't touch the ground. They have a weightless form. And they are almost floating in the air. Lord Vishnu was also floating on the air, but at that point in time, to show his affection to Prithu, the Lord touched his feet onto the ground. And very beautifully, Prabhupada says, and the Bhagavatam also describes that when the Lord touched his feet on the ground, the Lord simultaneously put his hand or rested one of his hands on the shoulders of Garuda. Why? As if to take support. Prabhupada says, as if to take support. Because the Lord just usually doesn't get down from Garuda and stand on the ground. So this time he just stepped down just to make a gesture of lovingly approaching Prithu Maharaj. He kept his hand on the shoulder of Garuda, kind of to take support. This was a very extraordinary gesture of affection by the Lord. So Prithu was repeatedly wiping his tears as he was observing all this, and he was feeling more and more overwhelmed. But even after repeatedly seeing the Lord, Prithu Maharaj wasn't feeling fully satisfied in his heart. Prithu Maharaj then started offering beautiful prayers from the innermost core of his heart. So Prithu Maharaj starts speaking to Lord Vishnu, because Lord Vishnu asked him to take benediction. And just before offering him to take benediction, the Lord speaks about liberation and so many other things, and being free from material qualities and liberation, as if the Lord was offering him liberation. But Prithu Maharaj, in his beautiful prayers, he clarifies to the Lord. First thing he tells the Lord is, "Oh Lord, you are the best giver of benedictions. You are Varadaraj. You are the topmost. But what is the point of asking from you those benedictions which are actually affected by the three modes of material nature, which effectively means any material benediction? First of all, these kind of material benedictions can be given by the Devatas also. Not only that, these kind of material benedictions actually don't lead to happiness, they actually lead to misery. People think that their material benedictions will lead to happiness, but that is not necessarily true. Because the soul is never satisfied by material opulences. In fact, when the living entity is affected by lust, greed, envy, anger, and so on and so forth, even though he may attain success and opulence, his heart always continues to burn because of these lower qualities. Happiness doesn't come. So why are you tempting me by all these things? I am not interested. Now, these things are available even for people in hellish conditions. So I know you can give all this, oh my dear Lord. But I do not ask you, O Kaivalyapati, O giver of liberation. Tan Isha Kaivalyapate Vrinenacha. I don't want that. So I don't even want liberation. You are Kaivalyapati, you are the Lord of liberation. But I do not want even liberation. So what do I want? Prithu Maharaj is now expressing his heart. He says, I don't want material benedictions. I don't even want liberation. Why I don't want liberation, my dear Lord? Because within liberation, there is no opportunity. If I merge into the Brahmajyoti, there is no opportunity to taste the nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. I will not be able to experience the nectar of your bhakti, especially in the form of hearing your glories. Because hearing your glories is so satisfying to the heart, especially when those glories are coming from the lips of pure devotees, that happiness of bhakti of hearing your glories far exceeds the bliss of Kaivalya. So what I want to ask from you, O Lord, is I want to hear your Harikatha, but the problem is I have only 2 years. And I want to hear so much. I want to hear all 12 cantos of Bhagavatam together. Why I'm hearing one verse. There's so much nectar. I want to drink, but I don't have a capacity to drink the nectar because only 2 years. So give me millions of years to hear your glories, especially the glories which are coming from the lips of your pure devotees. This is a very beautiful verse. I'm just going to recite this verse. Na kamaye nath tad api aham kvachin na yatra yushmat charanam bujashavah mahattamantar hridayan mukhachito vidhatsva karnayutam eshamevaraha. So much unlimited glories. I want to hear all of them. And then he says, why he's asking for this benediction? Because, oh Lord, people do not understand the power of this hearing of Harikatha, especially when this Harikatha is heard from the lips of your devotees. It is actually so powerful, so powerful. People do not understand the potency of hearing your glories from the lips of those who have pure devotion. Sa uttama shloka mahan mukhachito bhavat padamboja sudha kananilaha. When the great devotees who have great attachment to your lotus feet, when they speak Harikatha, you know what happens? Maharaj Prithu is explaining. Because these great devotees, they are holding your lotus feet within their heart. They are holding your lotus feet within their heart. And because they are speaking Harikatha from their heart, full of emotion, when that Harikatha comes out from their heart, that Harikatha is mixed with the saffron dust from your lotus feet. The particles from their mouth, not just the Harikatha comes, it is mixed with the saffron particles from your lotus feet, which are situated in the heart of that pure devotee. And when we hear that Harikatha from such devotees, along with the Harikatha, those saffron particles also go inside. And they purify us. They give us devotion. They transform us. They free us from everything inauspicious. Smritim punar vismrita tattva vartmanam kuyoginam no vitarati alam varaihi. By hearing such katha, the forgetful living entities gradually remember their eternal relationship with you. Even bad yogis, kuyoginam. Kuyoginam means those are not very good yogis. Means those who are struggling to practice the principles of spiritual life. Which means people like us in Kali Yuga, kuyogi. Many of us, even though we want to, we try to, we are struggling to follow the principles of devotion properly. And Prithu Maharaj is saying, yeah, for kuyogis like us, this is the best medicine. Liberation is insignificant because the bliss of liberation doesn't compare with the unlimited bliss of Premananda, of hearing your nectarian katha. But the power of this Harikatha of yours is, even if once a devotee or an aspiring spiritualist hears such Harikatha with faith in the association of devotees, he will develop such great taste for that hearing that he will never want to give up that association. He will want to always come in that association and continue to hear, because this taste is so sweet and so beautiful that this is an intoxication of the soul. This kind of Harikatha is an intoxication for the soul, especially when it is heard with faith and eagerness. Unless a person is absolutely an animal, he cannot give up hearing such Harikatha. That is what Prithu Maharaj said. Basically means only an animal-like person will give up the opportunity to hear Harikatha in the association of devotees. Even Lakshmi Devi, who's always serving you, she is eager to hear Harikatha in the association of devotees. What to speak of ordinary people? So only an animal will give up such an opportunity. So essentially, Prithu Maharaj, through all these beautiful shlokas, is glorifying the power of bhakti and especially glorifying the process of hearing from the lips of devotees. Again, it brings to our mind, and Prabhupada quotes this verse in the purport, Satam prasangam mamavidya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha tadjoshanadhi apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishyati. But when we hear Harikatha in the association of devotees, the ears and the heart becomes fully satisfied. And when we continue that process, gradually the heart becomes purified and one develops strong faith, attachment to the Supreme Lord, and eventually Prema Bhakti. So just give me that. Give me that opportunity to continuously hear and give me millions of years so I can drink it unlimitedly. So that's one benediction that he asked, that I don't want liberation, rather give me this. This is better than liberation. So in that way, actually, Prithu Maharaj is already establishing that bhakti is higher than mukti. Because he's saying, I don't want mukti, because in mukti, this opportunity is not there. Give me bhakti. And then very humbly, he says, oh Lord, I actually want to serve your lotus feet. But I have a bit of a concern. Actually, Lakshmi Devi, Jagat Janani, the mother of the universe, is busy serving your lotus feet. I sometimes feel that, if I also come there and I also want to serve your lotus feet and press your lotus feet, maybe she may become upset with me. So please, you give me that service, and if she becomes upset with me, you please manage, you take my side. If by chance Mother Lakshmi gets offended. So there are a lot of beautiful purports for these two verses also, but in the interest of time, I'll not go into that. Please read the purports. A lot of beautiful points Prabhupada has explained. So he's thinking that perhaps I may end up in a quarrel with Lakshmi Devi if I get busy in serving the Lord's lotus feet. But essentially what Prithu Maharaj is saying is, this is our highest aspiration. Oh Lord, what is our highest aspiration? Our highest aspiration is not mukti. Our highest aspiration is just to serve you, just to serve your lotus feet. And that itself is so satisfying. What is the value of benedictions? See, this is the point about bhakti, which most people are unable to understand, that bhakti is its own reward. A bhakta doesn't see bhakti as a means to attain something. A bhakta who is actually advanced in transcendental understanding and who is able to relish bhakti even to some extent. We are not even talking about premi bhaktas. We are even talking at sadhana stage, devotees who are able to relish even a little bit, they can very easily see that no material benediction can compare to what I'm experiencing just by serving the Lord. So if I'm experiencing such pleasure in serving the Lord, why should I distract myself by any material benedictions? Because if I get material benedictions, they will distract me into taking or indulging in enjoying those material opulences, and then I will be disconnected from bhakti, then I'll lose my actual enjoyment. So this is a distraction. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, one of the very great acharyas who was in Vrindavan, he writes a very beautiful verse, and Prabhupada quotes this in one of the purports in this chapter. I think perhaps this verse or maybe the previous verse. He says, Kaivalya narakayate tidashapur akasha pushpayate durdandendriya kala sarpapatali protkhada damstrayate vishwam purna sukhayate Vidhi Mahendra Adi Kitayate Yat Karunya Kataksha Vaibhavatam Gauraya Evastumah. That's a very, very sweet, very beautiful verse. I'm not going to go into the details of the translation of all aspects because it will take a long time. But essentially, the point that Prabhupada Saraswati is saying is that pure devotion to Krishna is so wonderful, and that pure devotion is achieved by the merciful glance of the Lord. Yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam. It is bestowed when the Lord becomes pleased. And that experience of pure devotion is so amazing, and the soul is so satisfied within that attainment of pure devotion that in front of the joy of the ocean of pure devotion, the joy of Kaivalya or liberation, Kaivalya seems like hell. Kaivalya narakayate. Kaivalya is like narak. So somebody will say, oh, this is big offense. How can you say liberation is like hell? But liberation may be very great for those who are in material life, but for those who are experiencing bhakti, when they compare from the perspective of their experience of bhakti, Kaivalya appears like hell. That means the contrast is so huge. And then he goes into many other comparisons. How attainment of the heavenly planets is just like a phantasmagoria. Pushpayate. Vidhi Mahendradi Kitayate. Even attainment of becoming Indra. Indra was so attached to his position, right? Or even that of Brahma. Vidhi and Brahma. Kitayate. Kita means insect. The pure devotee thinks attainment of position of great devatas like Indra and even Lord Brahma as insect-like, so insignificant as compared to pure devotion. So Prithu Maharaj, being very intelligent, knowing what is of value, he is telling the Lord, don't want liberation. Just, I would prefer that you give me millions of years. Give me the blessing of the process through which I will continually drink. And if I just follow that process, I know I will attain your lotus feet. I don't need anything else. So just give me that blessing, and even great devotees are seeking this blessing only, O Lord. They are just wanting to take shelter of your lotus feet. Your devotees also actually don't want any other blessings. So these kind of blessings that you are offering are actually, not really necessary for a pure devotee. So after, analyzing like this, Prithu Maharaj tells the Lord that, oh Lord, my prayer to you is, I've already analyzed the whole situation and I've expressed to you what my heart feels. So since you said, ask for a benediction, what I am answering to you is, having considered all this that I just explained to you, I think there's nothing really that I want. But I will request you, whatever you think is good for me, you give me. Actually, this is a very smart way. So please remember this. If the Lord ever asks you, then this is the best response. Because sometimes we don't know what to ask for. We ask for wrong things, then we lose a big opportunity. You give me that what is best for me. Actually, Arjuna did the same thing to Krishna, right? When he was so confused after all his own arguments, he says, Yashreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me. You tell me what is best for me. I surrender to you. So the devotee always knows that the Lord knows what is best. So the devotee is telling the Lord, Lord, you tell me what is the best blessing and you give it. Finished. No need for me to crack my head and, I've already expressed my heart. Anyway, I don't think either liberation or material benediction is of value. I am just happy hearing your glories. But you want to give me something, you give me whatever you think is best. Just like a father, even though the son doesn't ask or may not ask for something, the father is always engaged to do activities which are beneficial for the son. Yatha chared bala hitam pita swayam tatha tvam evar hasinah samihitum. Just like a father is engaged in taking care of the best interest of the son, similarly you take care of me, whatever you think is right. Correct. Sometimes, when the father will ask the son, so what do you think we should do? The son also doesn't know. Son tells the father, father, you tell me what should be done. What is the right thing to do? I will do. So the devotee trusts the Lord in this way, and that is why the devotee always gets the best blessings. Because rather than using their, limited understanding to figure out what is the best blessing, they leave it to the Lord, because they ultimately want to please the Lord only. And the Lord will always give that blessing which will be best for the devotee and ultimately best for everyone else. And the Lord reciprocates with that particular request by immediately blessing Prithu Maharaj by saying, may you have bhakti for me. So what does that mean? That this is the greatest blessing. Because Prithu Maharaj just said, no, give me what is best. I think liberation is not good. I don't think any material benediction is good. I think bhakti is best. But you decide, you give me what is best. Immediately the best blessing is given. And he says, he's very pleased. He says, yes, you have such purity of purpose. You are so clear in your thinking that you want to please me. Actually, only with such selfless purity of purpose, it is possible to transcend Maya. Otherwise, even bhakti is mixed with the modes. But you have showed such an impeccable, transcendental parabhakti, which is unaffected by the modes. This kind of purity of purpose is what I appreciate. And only with such nirguna bhakti one can transcend my Maya. So yes, I am blessing you with bhakti, and whatever instructions I gave you, Prithu Maharaj, of ruling in a proper way, please execute them. Don't be distracted by any other thing. I have given my supreme instruction to you already. Whoever carries out my instructions properly, all good fortune is there. They don't have to get distracted. Which effectively means for us, if we follow the Lord's instruction, and the Lord's instruction come to us through the spiritual master and the devotees, then we will always be rightly situated. So after appreciating Prithu Maharaj's prayers like this, and after he was properly worshipped, then the Lord finally decided, okay, now I will depart. So the Lord blessed Prithu Maharaj, and the Lord departed from the sacrificial arena. After that happened, Prithu Maharaj composed himself. It was such a beautiful exchange between the Lord and the devotee. Prithu Maharaj composed himself, and after having worshipped the Lord, Prithu Maharaj also worshipped all the great personalities who had gathered there according to their position, all the great devatas, sages, and various personalities from all over the universe. He gave them proper gifts. He spoke very sweet words to them. He offered respects according to their position, considering all of these great personalities as representatives of the Lord, and they all also returned to the Lord's abode. And so did the Lord. So in this way, the Bhagavatam says that the Lord revealed himself to Prithu Maharaj, even though normally the Lord's darshan is not possible to be attained by ordinary living entities. The Lord is not visible to the material vision, but he becomes visible to the pure devotees. Premanjanacharita bhakti vilochanena santaha sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. The Lord can be seen when the eyes are anointed with the salve of love. That's why Bhaktivedanta Saraswati would always say, and Prabhupada would quote this, that don't try to see God, but act in such a way that God wants to see you. Because nobody can see the God by demanding, I want to see God, show yourself to me. Otherwise, I'll not believe you if you don't show yourself to me. So this kind of an attitude is not going to take us anywhere. But when the devotee acts in an exemplary way, keeping the purpose or the mission of the Lord to be topmost, by sacrificing his own selfish interest for that higher cause, then the Lord becomes so pleased. Just like in this case, Lord came in front of Prithu Maharaj and blessed. So net, if you see this pastime, you'll realize that even though at an external level, Indra won because he kept his record, Shatakaratu, and at an external level, Prithu compromised by remaining on 99. He did not do his century. 99 retired. He didn't get out, but he 99 retired. He didn't hit his century of 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. But who became man of the match? I'm talking in cricket terms. Sorry. For those who don't understand cricket, sorry. I'm not going to explain this. Yes. Even though Shatakaratu is him, and he was on 99 and he retired on 99 because he listened to the captain and he retired on 99 for the overall good of the team. He became the man of the match. He received the blessing of pure devotion. Because the devotee is not interested in the short-term material gains or egoistic gains. The devotee is interested in the ultimate gain of receiving the favor of the Lord. And those who are fixed in spiritual understanding understand that the greatest gain is to please the Lord. And when the Lord is pleased, Prabhupada so many times says, the Lord is pleased and he smiles at us, just like he smiled at Prithu Maharaj. Everything wonderful will manifest. And it doesn't matter at an external level what has happened. Like Prithu Maharaj says that all these material benedictions, material situation, material attainments are so insignificant. Because if I have that pure devotion and if I have always the opportunity to hear your glories and have the opportunity to serve your lotus feet, then that itself is so topmost that I don't want anything else. My only one concern is hopefully Lakshmi Devi will not feel offended because I am also going to be busy there serving the feet. So you please manage that part. The rest I just want that. I don't want anything else. So sweet and so beautiful. Okay, so such a wonderful example, and there are so many more lessons. I'll strongly encourage all devotees, please read the purports of the last chapter and this chapter. Of course, read all purports, but especially these two because there are so many points. Actually, I feel I have not done justice because there are so many beautiful points in the purports beyond what I have covered. But as we said, this is only appetizer. Main course you have to take by reading the purports. Okay, so I'm opening up the floor. It's 10:10. Sorry, we went slightly over time. Anybody has any comments or questions? Okay. If there is yes, Bhaskar Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Yes.
Yeah. Prabhu, I just wanted to say thank you for today's class. Please accept my humble obeisance to you, Prabhuji. So today I learned a couple of lessons from this topic, Prabhu.
Yes.
One thing is that Krishna is not pleased by the external behavior, external show up. Krishna is only pleased by your inner motivation. That how and what is the motivation is you are trying to do it the service for the sake of Krishna. That's at that point actually I truly understood Prabhu today's class. And there's another thing is material attainment finished by the death. So nowadays we are all looking after attaining the material desires and all this stuff. So this is also one of the point I learned from today's class.
Very
And
well.
and last one is God can give us the what is best for us, instead of we're gonna ask that I want this. So yeah, that is also I felt like we need to ask, instead of we're gonna ask the God. So God, we can just uh, give a ball to God, said okay, whatever you like to me, just give it us, so that would be helpful like that.
Beautiful, wonderful.
Thank you, Prabhu.
You have understood the right lessons which this pastime is trying to convey.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your understanding. Beautiful. So I like that. I mean, every time you don't have to always necessarily ask a question. If you want to share an insight, if you have an experience, if you have heard something anywhere else, or you want to comment, that is also welcome. So thank you. I appreciate. Thanks, Bhaskar Prabhu. So this is, yeah. So this is actually very important. So if we always keep in mind that ultimately it is about pleasing the Lord.
Yeah.
Not even about doing big things. We can do big things and displease the Lord if we do not have the right motivation.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yeah, because Krishna knows deep in our heart why we are doing what we are doing. Even though at an external level, the activity may be a devotional activity. And that was the whole point, right? Even though yajna was a devotional activity, if that 100th yajna was going to create a disturbance, then the higher purpose is that devotional activity is for pleasing the Lord. If the Lord is better pleased by maintaining peace and not creating a disturbing situation, then that is more pleasing. So the ultimate principle was better understood by Prithu, and that is why he pleased the Lord more, because he understood the real purpose of dharma. The real purpose of dharma is haritoshanam, samsiddhir haritoshanam. And that is what the Bhagavatam says, right? Atapumbi Dvijashreshta Varunashrama Vibhagashra Swanushchitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. But all these rules and regulations of duties which are prescribed for the various Varnas and Ashramas, the perfection of the performance of these duties is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we simply become externally insistent on performing a duty, even though it is quite clear that it is not going to lead to an overall good situation, then that is not pleasing to the Lord, because the Lord understands that you have failed to see the spirit. You understand, right? Sometimes we try to follow the letter of the law, but we forget the spirit of the law. So the spirit of all devotional instructions is ultimately to please the Supreme Lord. So Prithu never lost track of that. And that is why he managed to please the Lord. And those devotees who take this kind of a position and understanding this higher, more deeper, and there are many other examples in scriptures of this. We don't have time, but there are many beautiful. If you analyze across the Bhagavatam, so many places, so many devotees take a humble position just so that a higher purpose is served, and then the Lord definitely becomes pleased.
Absolutely,
Anybody?
Prabhuji.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Prabhu, please. Yeah.
Always choosing the higher purpose is always a lesson in all the kathas that are being narrated over here. Always choosing the higher purpose could be the objective. So that is what pleases the Lord. Wonderful. Very, very nice. Thoroughly enjoyed, and a lot of learnings in today's session. Very, very wonderful.
Yes, it is an amazing pastime. And this pastime is very relevant, especially for devotees, because it conveys very subtle aspects about devotion. Because devotion is not just about, sometimes we get so caught up by religion in terms of its external observances that we just think the execution of the external observances is religion. we forget that the goal of the external observances is ultimately pleasing the Lord. And if that is not getting achieved through the observances, then it's a waste. And that's exactly what the Lord also directly told him, that you are doing so many religious things, you are doing so many yajnas, but if you fail to understand this point, then everything that you have done is a waste, because you have not actually come to the point. So that is why it is said dharma should lead to jnana. Karma should lead to jnana, and jnana should eventually lead to bhakti. Right? Otherwise, it's a waste. If you are not progressive, of course, for us, we don't have to follow that sequence. We directly engage in sadhana bhakti because we are fortunate to understand the potency. But those who are not so fortunate, at least they should gradually progress like that. That karma observance, which doesn't lead to jnana in the longer run, is also futile. And that jnana, which doesn't eventually lead one to understanding that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, oh, everything is coming from Vasudeva, I have to surrender to Vasudeva, I have to love him, then what is the point? So ultimately, we have to evolve towards that understanding. And then take shelter. And that shelter is this dependence. And Prithu Maharaj showed that beautiful example of that dependence, right? By saying to the Lord, so beautifully, right? He just turned to the Lord and said, you tell me what is good and you give it. I'm okay. Whatever you give me, I'm fine. So sweet, isn't it? I mean, how many of us will tell the Lord, because we'll think, I don't know what God will give me if I pass the buck back to him, And always hearing Harikatha is not what I want. This is how we will think, because if we are not advanced in our consciousness, this is how we will think. Because Prithu Maharaj, because of his pure devotion, has a realization, a very strong and clear realization of how that experience of hearing pure Harikatha from pure devotee is immensely satisfying to the soul. If we are not so advanced, we will not be able to appreciate that point. So if we don't appreciate that point and we don't have that realization, we will not be able to say that statement, what Prithu Maharaj said. Because this requires very deep realization. And the beauty is that if we simply continue to hear Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, this realization will come. Where one can actually understand this point, that this is all that is needed and this is all that is this is the greatest blessing. And this point comes across the Bhagavatam again and again and again and again. So if we become convinced even by this much, then it's a very big achievement, that the greatest blessing is to get an opportunity to hear in the association of those who are, even if they are not attained pure bhakti, that they have the aspiration of attaining pure bhakti. At least that. If not, of course, best to hear from those who have full pure devotion. That is the highest standard. This is what Prithu Maharaj is saying. But even if not that, at least where the Harikatha is not spoken with a motivation of material desire. It is spoken purely to glorify the Lord in a mood of devotion. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Prashant ji. Thank you for your comments.
So Prabhuji, your wireless neckband is very good, Prabhuji. We are able to hear you nice. I mean, you're as if you're talking to next to us. Actually, I feel like that.
Thanks to you and Suraj, by your kindness, this band has appeared.
All credit goes to Suraj. I'm just
both of you. Thank you. So if there's nothing else, then we will end the class. And I'll see you on Wednesday. Yeah. And we will continue our Chaitanya Charitamrita. Did you enjoy any inputs about our CC first class? Any suggestions, anything that anybody wants to give? Okay, no suggestions means all good. Okay, thank you. If you have any comments, you can always reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, I'm assuming all is good. So I'll see you all on Wednesday. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki